All right. Well, we're going to be going live here in just a minute. All right, we're about to go live. Today's race, we're doing 4 laps around Innsbruck Ring. That makes this race around 35K, give or take, based on the lead-in. This is an interesting course. It's based on Innsbruck and is relatively realistic. More or less, this is a flat course. There's one exception. There is a hill, and that is kind of smack dab in the middle of the course each time around. You're going to see that hill come up about 5K into the race, and they're going to do it 4 times. That hill may be a deciding factor, but interestingly enough, not just on the uphill, but on the downhill too. So let's jump right in here and take a look at some of our guys. Neutral start here again. 2 kilometers of a rolling start, neutral to begin. Today we are looking at Seattle United team made up of mostly Seattle riders, but not entirely all Seattle riders. We do have some folks from across the country as well. And they are facing off against squads from Japan again, Korea, and Costa Rica. Some of the finest riders from those areas there. So again, we have a nice entry lead in here. And right now we're looking at Josh Solito. Josh is on Hagen's Berman normally, which is the team that Will, aka the Boogeyman, and I race for, and he is an incredibly strong rider, Cat 3. Of course, right now we're just filtering in and out of riders, but let's take a look here and see if we can get a little closer. Now, the Seattle United guys are all going to be wearing a very similar kit today. So we're looking for black jerseys, black bibs. Ideally, some mixture of orange on that kit. Some of them are rocking orange hair, some of them are rocking orange socks, orange gloves, orange shoes, orange bikes. So we'll see if we can find maybe some of our other colleagues here. Twardsy should be rocking. Oh, where'd he go? These lists move pretty fast. There's Joe rocking the orange cap and the orange bike. So anybody that's wearing the black kit, orange accessories is going to be on Seattle United. Keep an eye out for those guys. So we got Evan there on the left. We got Joe moving up to the front. Right off the bat, why not get a little aggressive? So some of our other colleagues here across the country. We got... it is moving way too fast. Every time. Back to Joe here. All right. So I believe we're still in our neutral here, and that's indicated by that yellow beacon right there. JE Team RTC is our beacon. So we're looking at 500 meters left to go on the neutral rollout. And I will say they're doing neutral at about 3 to 4 watts per kilogram, which actually is a pretty aggressive pace in general. Even a lot of the B races in his WIF series will typically stay around that very pace, and these guys are just doing that as a lead out. Alright, so right now I've got the camera focused on Benjamin Peterson. You can see some orange hair right there, smack dab in the middle of your screen. Alright, and we are off. Beacon is going to go away. Team has been given the go, go, go. And immediately we got 10 watts per kilogram out of the gate. So we're going to start hot. Speaking of hot, the majority of us are up here in the Pacific Northwest. And while it's not particularly hot outside right now, it is warm. It's in the upper 70s, lower 80s today. And most of the guys that are here doing this race probably don't have air conditioning. The Pacific Northwest typically doesn't have air conditioning in houses. So I'd be willing to bet a lot of these guys are going to get pretty sweaty tonight, pretty grody, and that's just because they've got ice packs all over them. They've got 3 or 4 fans blowing on them at any given time. They've got cold bottles with ice in them, just doing everything they can to keep cold because, you know, while 78, 80 degrees isn't that hot, when your house is sitting in that temperature with the sun beating down on it pretty intensely, it's going to get pretty warm. So these guys are keeping cool by doing anything they possibly can. Alright, so let's take a look here and see. Alright, I see from Kyle today that he is not racing with us. Maybe next time. We got a pretty good sized squad. I think we got about 9 folks in this squad right now. We're watching Evan. So here's a little bit of information about Evan. Evan is a road category 3. Has really only been racing for 1 season. But in that 1 season has been really proving himself to be an amazing racer. Very, very strong guy. Very nice guy. One of the nicest guys you'll meet in the peloton. But just incredibly strong. Every single time we show up to race, he just puts the hurt on everybody around him. And but again, one of the best team players out there. He did in fact break a bike last year. I was in the same race when he broke that bike. That was in the Redmond Derby Days race, and there was a wreck that took down about 10 to 12 people. Now, actually, I should say, I think he might have actually broken that bike in Pacific Raceways, literally like 2 weeks before that. So I think that's when he broke his bike, is he got in a wreck in Pacific Raceways. Somebody swept across and took out his wheel, took him down, I think broke his bike. He was back on the bike again 2 weeks later at Redmond, and again somebody came across in a very large pack, I think it was about 90 people, cut across his front wheel in the middle of a turn, and it was just one bad thing that took out a dozen riders or so. So it's true, 1 broken bone, 1 broken bike, 1 season, but one heck of a great rider too. And apparently, has been given to me by Chris Twardzik, or Twardzy, is that he's also a particularly modest guy, which I can say for sure. I know that's true. And was a hell of a runner when he was at Wazoo. Go Cougs. I don't have any affiliation to Wazoo. In fact, they're a competing school from where I work, but whatever, that's cool. And apparently was very close to a 4-minute mile, so one hell of an accomplishment there. That explains it because he is just a natural athlete. He is very, very, very strong. Yeah, and Kyle's pointing out that, yeah, the AC comment is very relevant. It is absolutely true. We get out to ride around here. When it's warm like this, we try to get out early so that way we don't get the sun beating down on us too bad. I've tended to find, since I moved here, I spent a lot of time in the south and on the east coast, and those get hotter. They get 100-degree days regularly, where we don't here in the northwest. But I've found the sun to be far more intense here, so when you're riding 80 degrees here, it feels a lot more like 95 degrees on the east coast or in the south. We don't have a whole lot of humidity, but the sun, the intensity on that sun is just, it's just hard. All right, so now we're on, obviously, on a pretty steep hill here. This is the hill. Let me get back to the main screen there. Now this is where we got to watch out. Notice every single person's number is orange there. People are putting out massive amounts of power. And the bad news about this is where people could get dropped. Our own teammates could wind up getting dropped here, and it looks like that line is stretching out. When the line stretches out, that means that people are doing enough power. Oh, and here's a deciding moment right here. Okay, we're going over the hill. The smaller guys in this pack have to put out massive amounts of power to stay with the bigger guys at the front. If you're not, and you're small and you go over this, the Zwift algorithms don't really work in your favor. You still got to put out 500-600 watts of power to stay with this group. And I do see that there are some splits here, but I'm hoping that those can come back, because I don't want to see splits on this first lap. Let's move down here a little ways and see. Looks like it's staying together. Okay. So yeah, when these lines stretch out like this, what that means is that everybody's putting out just an immense amount of power. You can see everybody's kind of bunched up right now. That bunch just means that, you know, there's a few people at the front that are putting out power. A lot of people are sitting in and gaining speed just because they're with that group. And that's exactly what you want to do. You want to conserve your energy as much as possible. But notice these guys are going downhill and they're still doing 4, 5, 6 watts per kilogram. So they've really got to keep the strength up for these descents. But again, when you start to see that line stretch out, you really don't want to be too far back in that pack. If you are, what you find really fast, unfortunately, is that anybody that opens up a gap in front of you, you're not going to be able to close that gap. It's just going to be gone. And on that downhill, if that gap opens up, you're gone. You're gone. There's no way you're going to make that gap back up. So let's see. Hopefully, I'm just going to scroll on down through the list here. Hopefully all of our folks are together. Looks like Joe actually got gapped here. All right, so I'm thinking that he might be able to close it back down. He's putting out a pretty decent amount of power. He's got one person that he can work with here, D. Bonilla. These guys both have motivation to chase back down, and they are closing the gap a little bit. It is going to be very, very hard for these guys to do that, but I can tell you, Joe has an immense engine on him, so I know that he has the ability to hold 5, 6 watts per kilogram. So as long as these guys up front don't go crazy, then we're going to be okay. All right, so what we've got here, I've put on the Boogeyman's screen, and I got a little special here for us. We got the actual Boogeyman cam. Now, a lot of people might ask, actually people have commented that the name Boogeyman freaks them out, and they wonder why I call him the Boogeyman. Well, honestly, it's because when we started this channel a long time ago, Will, aka the Boogeyman, was like 10 years old, and frankly, I didn't want everybody knowing who exactly he was. We had a bunch of people following us, and you know, sometimes a little anonymity for a kid is not a bad thing. But on top of that, our last name in Spanish translates to Boogeyman. And honestly, let's face it, if you're on Strava and Will takes your KOM, you get that email that says, uh-oh, the Boogeyman stole your KOM. That's a KOM you don't go back for. You don't want the Boogeyman on your bad side. So it's probably a good name to have. Let's keep it that way. So he's in the next room over. You might be able to hear his trainer coming through my microphone. For that, I'm sorry. It kind of sounds like a vacuum cleaner. But, it is what it is. We got to do what we got to do. So right now he's sweating it out. He's got that nice headband on. He looks a little bit like Ralph Macchio from Karate Kid in the 80s. Just a little bit skinnier, perhaps. Now let's get back over to the race here and take a look. We got Josh. Yep, moving again. It's a tight pack. You got to be careful in these tight packs like this. All right, we're back on Josh here. Let me get a tighter camera view. Josh is in the center of your screen. Got a couple thumbs up there, orange hair. I can tell you for a fact, Josh does not actually have orange hair. Might come as a surprise, but I don't think that anybody on our team here actually has orange hair. So they're doing that because it makes it a lot easier for people to see their own teammates and to be able to track where everybody is. Now I suspect that this race is going to get pretty stretched out by the time we get to the second or third lap. So we'll have a much better time figuring out who everybody is. Looks like some other folks had the idea of using some orange kit there too, so that's going to make it a little bit tough. You almost wish there was some coordination ahead of time between the teams to help to make sure that you don't have the same kits or something very similar. But let's take a look here. So it looks like that gap back to Joe might have actually opened up. Now, if you recall, Joe was third place winner from last week's race, and I was hearing them mention before this race, this is not the kind of hill that suits Joe, just the short, punchy ones. Having ridden with him a few times, I can tell you he is very good at doing the very, very long climbs. Obviously, he's very strong enough to do the short climbs too, but if you get caught out on this and you get behind that wrong wheel, you're off. And that 21-second gap is going to be impossible to close. But while I got it out here, let's pull up some information on Joe. Joe's biggest claim to fame is, well, he's been racing for a very long time, since 1983. I will tell you I was 7. I wasn't racing a bike at that time. In fact, I wasn't racing a bike until about 5 years ago. But Joe's been racing since 1983 and is a certified level 1 USAC coach, UCI coach, and has worked with athletes to bring them up to have 3 world championship titles under his belt, Olympic silver medal under his belt, World Cup podiums, and 18 national titles in road track and cyclocross. He does also work with current World Tour professionals as well. And more information about Joe and Joe's coaching can be found at his website, which is TDL Cycling. TDLC, Tête de la Course, sorry, TDLC Cycling. Google search there will pull up his website and get you information about getting to coaching. And he does offer coaching. As a matter of fact, I know that because Will, aka the Boogeyman, works with Joe as his coach. We got a question from Gabriel Love in the comments. Is this Cat C or Cat D? This is absolutely Cat A. These are many of these racers in this race are professional racers or semi-professional. We've got people with national medals to their names. We have Costa Rica national champ racing against us here. We've got a couple folks that have got national titles of their own on the USAC side. This is definitely beyond Cat C or D. This is Cat A+. As a matter of fact, a lot of these guys, if you look in this whipped power rankings, you'll have rankings for A, B, C, and D, but you also have a ranking that has A that's in black instead of A in red. And that A in black denotes that these folks have FTPs that are beyond 5.0 watts per kilogram. So these folks are pushing out watts per kilogram that are beyond 5.0. So looking at Joe, he's 62 kilograms. I know for a fact his watts per his FTP watt per kilogram is well above 300 watts. 300 watts, very high into the 300s. So his FTP, for example, is closer to 5.5, 6 watts per kilogram. So these guys are A+, with that black medallion behind most of their names. So let's move back into the race here. We got, doesn't look like we've got any other splits going on right now. Not that I can tell. Looks like that line's getting stretched out though, so we want to make sure that we got Mike sitting on the back here. He's getting real close. Mike joins us from Chicago. As I understand it, he is the crit champion for the Oscar Mayer Wiener National Championship crits, which may or may not be a made-up race, but I didn't have any race information for him beforehand, so let's just say that's a real race. And I think he took it in spades. You know, he lapped the field 4 times over. But again, that pack is staying pretty tight together. This is largely a flat race, with the exception of that one hill, which is kind of brutal. This is a very flat race. Lumps here and there, little rollers, but nothing big. If you recall, the last time we streamed this, they did a race that included 2 very steep climbs, very long climbs. And I erroneously stated at the beginning of that stream that, oh, this is a relatively flat course overall. Yeah, I might have been mistaken on that one. This is the one that's a little bit more flat. It does have that steep pitch every single time around, and I can tell you the few times that I've done this race, I'm not as strong as these guys. I can hold my own in this pack, but I would definitely be gapped, and I would be off the back. But I can tell you that if you're doing 7-8 watts per kilogram up this climb that they hit every single lap, you will not stay with the pack. You just will not cut it. All right, they're about to hit that hill again, so let me see if I can get on to some of our climbers. Now, if I were to advise on this, what I would say is be at the front at the beginning of the climb. That's a no-brainer, I know that. But as soon as that climb starts, you want to be up towards the front. Now I see we got Benjamin up front here. We've got Evan not too far off the front. You want to be able to do that so you can kind of sag climb, except you don't want to sag climb too much. If you find yourself at the back of this pack, at the top of this climb, you're not going to be able to get over the top fast enough. So when these guys get over the top, again, you've got to put down that massive, massive power, even going over the top of the climb. All right, so we got somebody off the front there doing crazy watts per kilogram. Again, 9-10 watts per kilogram. This is borderline sprint level stuff that these guys are doing going up this climb. And they're going to do that every single time. I can tell you myself, I'm getting a little bit nervous just watching this, just because it's so incredibly tough. Now, I do see a little bit of a gap that just opened up there as they came around the corner. I'm hoping that closes back down. We got a few of our riders behind that gap. The good news is that even though that gap did just open up, there's enough chasers in there that they can bring that back. So we've got a few guys back here. Let's see who we got here. We got Brian still in that chase group. And again, it looks like they can close that back down. It's only got about a 1 to 2 second gap right now. All right. What do we got in front? Oh, we got some more gaps opening up here. We want to make sure that those gaps get closed. Come on, guys, move up there, move up there. So we got Josh. Looks like Boogeyman has been gapped, potentially. Can't tell. Looks like that's a pretty good sized gap there. Yeah, unfortunately, Boogeyman and Mike Colley have both been gapped there. So we got a 20-second gap to the next group, and this is where things are going to start splitting up. Again, those guys are doing crazy power over that, and once you're off the back after the top of that climb, the gap just opens up like crazy. Now what you see here is you've got several groups going on, and what you might see, you got this large group at the front, your large peloton, that's your main group, and what you might start to see is some of these chasing groups on these flatter sections. If they can begin to work together, this group here, like with Josh in it, these guys might be able to close that back down. You can see it. They're that close. I will tell you, on a road race, closing down a 6-second gap, not that hard. Hard, but not that hard. On Zwift, damn near impossible. Let's take a look here. We got So Felipe Nystrom is actually the Costa Rican national champion. All right, we got Boogeyman here, and he and Mike are going to hopefully work together here to try to pull some of that back. They got one person just a few seconds up the road from them. They should be able to bring that person back in, and then the three of them can work together to close that back down. Now, really, at this point, if they do get P. Herrera from Costa Rica, if they bring him into the fold, it's only because he's falling back, not because they're pushing forward in this case. Because you notice they're pretty much doing a similar power. They're all working together doing a similar power. But 2 is always going to be a little bit faster than 1 anyway, so we'll see what happens. They have closed it down to a 30-second gap, and oftentimes that's because there's a little roller up front, and there is when the lead pack goes over the roller and the chaser group is not on a roller, the time gap tends to shrink a little bit, but then it opens right back up as soon as they come back down the backside of that roller, and sometimes even more than you would expect. Okay, so looks like they're going to close that gap with Herrera. Okay, let's see what else we got up here. In this first chasing group, we've got Josh. And in that lead group, we still have Brian. Now, Brian and Evan, both on Audi in their normal racing careers. So they're teammates. I don't know that they've raced a whole lot together in road races. They're different categories. But, and Audi's a relatively big squad. It's one of the bigger squads in the Northwest. So they probably haven't raced too much together on the actual road. But I imagine they've done quite a bit of team events and team training as well. Looks like I gave Joe a little extra screen time there with his card. All right, so I got a couple questions here. As a Luddite who does not use Swift, how do riders communicate to take turns pulling, or do both riders get an equal draft advantage through the algorithms? That's an excellent question. I can tell you that right now I'm actually listening to their Discord channel, and hopefully I'm on mute, because if not, then you can hear me. That's probably kind of annoying. But I'm on a Discord channel where they're all talking to each other using their phones, so they can communicate that. The Zwift algorithms, while they are good for learning draft and for using draft on these types of things, they're not realistic. They're not 100% correct. So, oftentimes, for example, the Boogeyman will sit on on the front, pulling, and he doesn't put off much draft. He's only 105 pounds. When he's putting out 200 watts on the front, I can put out 150 watts and stay with him, or even 110 watts and stay with him. In Zwift, that's just not the case. You might get a 5 or 10% benefit from the draft, but not the 30 to 50% that you get in real life. So they do communicate. They do tell each other. I can tell you right now, there's not a lot of communicating. I'm listening to that channel right now. I'm hearing a lot of grunting. A couple cuss words here and there that we'll keep censored out, but not a whole lot of communication. Another question: how come there's a teenager and a national champion in the same race? Well, that's a great question. I will tell you that that teenager happens to also be a national champ podium finisher and is probably one of the fastest people in the area. As a matter of fact, I rode with Boogeyman, Will, who also happens to be my son. I'll be proud about that. We just did Mount Rainier a week and a half ago, rode up to the top of Mount Rainier, and he got 13th place on Strava on that ride. And the only reason he didn't actually get the KOM on that hour-and-a-half segment is because I actually slowed him down. He was only 4 minutes off the KOM on an hour-and-a-half segment, and there were many a times where I was begging him to slow down. So if I had let him go and just let him go from the beginning, he'd have been KOM there. So I think he can hold his own. Now, unfortunately, in this one, I absolutely can tell you, I've done this race before. It is a pain when you go over that hill. you have to be in the top third of the racers. If you're not in the top third of the racers, you're going to have to put out tons and tons of power. And if you happen to be a little guy going over that, the way that the Zwift algorithms work is as you go down the hill, those guys that are 70 kilograms, 75 kilograms versus Will, who's only 50 kilograms, they get that huge boost from the gravity algorithm that the little guys don't get. So there are some little guys here. Joe is a smaller guy. He's about my height, but he's, I think, only like 60 kilograms or 55 kilograms. He's really light, but he's also incredibly powerful. Will is very, very light, only weighs in at 50 kilograms, but his FTP is around 5 watts per kilogram right now, 5.5 watts per kilogram. So, but when he goes over that hill, he has no benefit. He does not have that weight to help carry him over the hill. All right, so the good news is what we're looking at here is these packs are staying together pretty well. Now the bad thing is anybody that's off the back is unfortunately off the back. And that's just not going to come back. Let's move down the pack here a little bit. So we've got the lead group, and you can see the gaps are opening up. And that's just, again, it's a function of these Zwift algorithms. The platform itself is phenomenal. But what it doesn't really take into consideration is, you know, these guys are going, they might be getting a little bit tired. They're putting out a little less power than the folks in the lead group there. But if you have 5 racers doing 200, 300 watts, 282 watts, 299 watts is what I'm looking at right now, behind a pack, and that pack is doing pretty similar wattage, they're not going to be far behind. And in fact, if they do good rotation, oftentimes they can go much faster than that larger pack, because that larger pack is going to have less organization. People are going to be less motivated to be on the front. Yes, you may have some people doing higher amounts of wattages up to the front, but they're going to do them for much shorter times. They're not going to be doing clean rotations. A well-motivated pack of 5 people doing a high wattage is easily going to be able to chase back on the road a full-size peloton at this kind of gap. But unfortunately in Zwift, that just isn't the case. Now let's take a look here. These guys are closing it in. So P. Herrera, Mike Colley, and Will are closing in that gap to the second chasing, or to that first chasing group. It was 31 seconds ago, not 31 seconds to go, just a few minutes ago, and they are closing that down. So if they stay motivated, then they can close this. Let's watch these guys for just a minute here. Put it back on the boogeyman cam, and we'll see here that he's not too stressed out here. He's not killing himself here. So what he might be doing is saving himself just a little bit. If that gap is to start coming down, which it probably will, then what we might see is Mike and Will maybe attack a little bit to get over to that chase group. If they can do that and they can play it smart, if they get about 3 to 4 seconds striking distance to the next chase group, and then they coordinate their efforts, they can jump and leave that other guy kind of just out in no man's land. It's a terrible place to be, and it's awful when that happens. But let's face it, we want to see our guys win. All right, let's move back up here into the pack. Let's see who we've got in the lead groups here. Oh, and they're going. They're about to go back up this hill again. Evan's doing great. Look at that. Brian's up there towards the front. Oh, wow. These guys are killing themselves at that. Evan stayed to the front. That's great. That's excellent news. Ben Peterson's up to the front. Twardsy's up there at the front. So we've got a good contingent of folks still up at the front there. Let's get back up here and take a look. That is the wrong card for Chris. Let me reload that card. Got the wrong card for Chris there. There we go. A little technical difficulty. Nothing like throwing some of these things up at the last moment. All right, so Chris Twardzik, aka Twardsy, is currently an independent rider. I identified his team incorrectly last time, so my apologies to Twardsy there. Road category 2. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that 10 banana smoothie with dates and pineapple juice. But I don't think they want to talk about anything like that right now. Twardsy's been doing an awful lot of Zwift racing and is actually an incredibly talented Zwift racer and is right now focusing on being within the top 100 Zwift world ranking. And I notice I've got a little typo there. I'll fix that too. But really has taken to Zwift racing. And let's face it, a lot of us have taken to Zwift racing over the over this strange summer, just because we haven't had any other racing available to us. Of course, he's great on the road as well. He's won our Seward Park series, which is a very, very long-running series here based in Seattle. And the 7 p.m. race is no joke. That is a ridiculously hard race. Even though it's not USAC sanctioned, it is one of the harder training races. It goes on every Thursday night, and to win the entire series is a hell of an accomplishment. A couple great sponsors. So he's sponsored by Pedia, Amp Human, Carbo Rocket, and again wants to focus on getting into that top 100 of Zwift World rankings. Alright, let's see what we got here. Here I'm doing a little bit of chatting, which means, and it sounded like it was a little bit panicked. I think they were looking to see if they got people covering moves. So it's a pretty good sized pack that's staying together here. You can see everybody's using the Tron bike, or most people are using the Tron bike, and that's the glow-in-the-dark bike. And you might ask, well, why are people using different bikes? What difference does it make? Is it just because it's pretty? Is it just because it's cool? Do they try to replicate their own frames? And one of the interesting things about Zwift, like it or not, is that they do different algorithms for different bikes. Certain bikes are going to be faster on certain terrains. The Tron bike, now of course the fastest on flat road is always going to be a TT bike, and they do that pretty well in this platform. They focus very well on making sure these things are relatively accurate. So the TT bikes are going to be your fastest, but those aren't allowed. I'm actually kind of surprised that I'm seeing a disc wheel on a couple of the bikes here, a rear disc. Doesn't seem to make sense. Usually they're not allowed in races. And it doesn't help you on a race that has any hills. Like this guy's got a disc on his, and he's got a TT helmet. That's kind of weird. But okay. The Tron bike is the fastest road bike that's available for this type of terrain. If you're doing, flats or you're doing mild climbing, it's going to be your fastest bike. And well, it doesn't sound like much. It essentially means that you can do the Innsbruck ring about 1.5 to 2 seconds faster on the Tron bike than you could on maybe the S-Works Tarmac. Each bike has its different profiles, and different algorithms that Zwift has in on it. In addition to that, the wheels have different profiles and different algorithms associated with them too. So the Tron bike is one single package. You get it as a whole unit. You get the wheels, you get the bike. You have to do a certain climbing challenge to get that. You have to do the equivalent of Everesting on your bike on Zwift to actually get that Tron bike. So anybody that you see who's got that bike has probably put a lot of time and effort into climbing on Zwift. Now you see there's some folks that are probably rocking other bike frames and other bike wheels, and that's fine. That's their choice. Maybe they have done the climb and they don't use that frame. Maybe they haven't done the climb yet to get all that, or just officially signed up for the challenge to get that bike. I know personally I have the Tron bike. I don't like to use it just because frankly I think it's ugly. I'm willing to put a little extra effort into the 1.5 to 2 seconds that it takes to get around the course. So you'll see some folks that are rocking other bikes, S-Work Tarmac, Cannondales, whatever. And if you go into the shops on Zwift, you'll see that you can get many different types of bikes. And those different bikes have different aero profiles, have different climbing profiles, weight, all that kind of stuff. And it really does equate to a specific algorithm on the Zwift platform overall. So there's a lot of thought that goes into choosing the proper bike, choosing the proper helmet, just like you would do in a regular road race or in a regular bike shopping. You do the same thing with Zwift. Now something you'll see is oh my goodness. So now I'm pulling up Ben's card, and that's got Chris's information. Let me fix that too. I was putting all this together right before the race started, and apparently I mixed a couple of them up. So there we go. Benjamin Peterson, racing now, and he's actually doing. Is he the one on the disc wheel and the aero helmet? I think that might be the case. Let's see here. No, I think this is him here. He's not on the aero. Yeah, he's got the orange hair and the black kit. So he's on the Specialized Tarmac, which in this platform again is a very good bike for climbing. For the flatter sections, it's not that great, but that's just like in real life. It's fine at flat sections, but it's not going to be amazing. You can see a lot of the guys use it because it is a really good climbing bike in Zwift. All right, let's get some more questions in the comment field here. Anybody have any questions or any thoughts or anything that they want me to address? Or you tell me what you want to see. You want me to focus on somebody? I can do that too. I think, I may be wrong, this might be Peter Kim, who's another Seattle racer. It's tough to say though. Let's get back on Twarzy here. Okay, thanks Kyle. Yep, so PTO rider is Peter Kim. Of course, Peter is Korean, and he's got a Korean flag. Even though we're racing against Korea, it makes it a little bit confusing, so thanks for the clarification. All right, let's watch Twarzy here for a little bit. He's staying up towards the pointy edge of this race. Alright, so we still have a pretty decent group here, bundled together. These guys are putting out just immense power going up this climb. Whenever you see those numbers go orange, that means you're going above 8 watts per kilogram. So 600 watts to go up this climb for a minute. That's pretty impressive. 600 watts for a minute this late into a race is It's kind of insane, especially at that weight. That's just insane. 600 to 700 watts, let me point that out. And look out that, that heart rate. All right, so he did something smart. Look at that, how he got right up to the front as he was heading over that. That's textbook, that's perfect. This could create separation. You can see there's already starting to stretch out now. Let me zoom out a little bit here. Let me zoom out a lot, apparently. I'm going right through walls and through people's legs. That's interesting. Might have created a little bit of separation, but I don't know. It might be too soon to tell. You know, let's get back to that first chasing group. Let's see what we got going on there. They're a little bit further back still. Okay, so that was the first chasing group. So we've got a little bit of a split here. We got Ben Peterson a little bit behind. Okay, and it looks like maybe Joe was able to catch back on with this group. So now they've got a little bit of a better chasing group coming into this. And I can hear some efforts coming out of this group. I can hear it here on the Discord channel. Yeah. I got word that Twardsy is chilling at 135 BPM. That probably makes sense. He's probably like Will and me. He's kind of a smaller guy. He's probably got a heartbeat like a rabbit. All right. So we've got two chasing groups essentially, and honestly, the second chasing group really stands a chance of closing it down on that first chasing group if they're able to really just put in this power going up this hill. They've really got to be motivated to go up this hill with some juice. If they can do that, they can close that gap down. You can see it's at 18 seconds right now. Now here's the problem. Watch this gap. We'll stay on Josh here for a minute. Watch this gap though. As soon as they crest this hill, right now, what is a 18 second is now 20 second, 21 second. And it's just going to open up a lot. So with any luck, these guys are going to put out a lot of power to get up this hill. And I see that they're moving. But notice they're not doing the 9 watts per kilogram that lead group is doing. They're still putting out quite a bit, but not the same amount. Now, okay, notice these guys have gone over the hill, and look at the power they're having to do just to stay over that hill. Yep, so the gap is opening up, and that's just because, again, you go over that hill, it creates that gap if you don't put on just massive amounts of power. So they're going downhill, and they're still putting out 5-6 watts per kilogram. Now this should come back together. With any luck, this should just zip right back up, get back together. Yeah, so they're already back together. But notice what was a 20-second gap is now closer to a 45-second gap and opening. It will close back down momentarily, but I don't know if it's going to be, it might be too little too late. They've got to close 45 seconds in about 3 to 4 kilometers. Might be a little bit too little too late. But this is road racing. I mean, this is tough stuff. I mean, a race where you and I believe I missed the sprint. Well, my apologies for that. I was focusing on the chasing groups here. I'm gonna try to listen to the intel here. Swarzy got third, Peter got fifth. All right, so now we're watching these chasing groups. I need to go back to me so I can find some of these guys that are still out on the course. Let's get to Josh. All right, so this is our chasing group. I got about 1K to go. All right, we'll see if anybody actually musters up a good sprint for the finish. Yeah, excellent question. So I've heard that people say Zwift racing can be harder than real life. Any truth to that? Just for certain types of races? So I do actually have a video on my channel. If you click through to that, you can find out me comparing Zwift crits and Zwift road races to each other. I can absolutely tell you that yes indeed, Zwift racing is harder than regular road racing. All right, so these guys are going for a nice sprint here, and I do know that Josh has got one hell of a sprint in him. Even after being tired, he can really put down the power. Let's see if he can hold it. He might have gone a touch soon. I think that's the case. I think he went a little too soon. All right, that does happen. Yes, Zwift racing is a lot harder, and what you'll notice is these guys are on the power 100% of the time. There's no coasting. You just don't coast. And if you do, you find yourself off the back instantly. So in this particular race, these guys will average. I know Will's going to have averaged around 240 watts, and he's 100 kilograms or 50 kilograms, so he'll average just under 5 watts per kilogram for this entire race. Whereas in a regular road race, you won't average anywhere near that type of power. One simple tactical mistake in a Zwift race, and you're done. It's over. And even if you look at, if you check out Alex Dowsett's channel, he even talks about the same thing. He entered a Zwift A race, which he should have easily cleaned up in, and he was dropped off the back within the first 5K. So yeah, Zwift racing is a lot harder. I feel awfully terrible that I wasn't able to catch the finish of the lead group. I'll try not to let that happen again in the future, so please accept my apologies for that, but we will fix that. I'll also get some of the cards ironed out before the next race as well. I would encourage, if you haven't tried Zwift racing, I do have a couple of videos on my channel that describe how it's done, what it does, how it compares to road racing and crits. It's definitely not the same thing. There are some skills that are transferable. There are skills that are not transferable, and vice versa between Zwift and road. I feel like crits are probably a little bit more realistic if you jump into the ones in Crit City, but even still, in a regular crit, you're not going to be pedaling through a corner at 36, 40 miles an hour, and you can do that in Zwift racing. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, you would die if you did that in a real race on a 90-degree turn or a 180-degree turn like they have you do, and you're doing 40 plus miles an hour. It's just not going to happen. But you have to in Zwift, or you will get gapped. So that's kind of a long answer to a short question. Check out some of the other videos. If you want to, feel free to subscribe. I don't want to try to pitch my own channel here. But if you want to subscribe to my stuff, go ahead, and I answer some of those things about Zwifting, and I even have some live streams of Zwift races where I'm talking through them as I do it. All right, well, exciting race. That was tough. When you see some of the folks that were in the podium last week get dropped on the first 10K, that's how you know that it's kind of real. It's the real stuff, because you know, anything can happen. All right, well, thanks for tuning in. We'll do this again. I think the schedule for these is we're going to try to do them monthly. So we'll try to get these posted again when we're doing them. We'll try to post them about a day in advance on our channel. and we'll post them on various social media sites. Feel free to check those out. Feel free to subscribe to my channel and click the bell icon for notifications. That way you get notified when these races come up. And I'll try to put some other content on there. I've got some reviews coming up real soon for both mine and the Boogeyman's new TT bikes. We're rocking some new Canyon TT bikes and have some thoughts about those we'll share soon. Other than that, congrats to the Seattle team. You guys did a great job again. Just an absolutely brutal race, and I'm really glad to see the kind of inclusivity that this team's bringing to the region and focusing on bringing teams together from around the area. So great job, guys. Keep it up, and we'll have some more of these international races coming soon.